I've got three experts here and people who come from very different backgrounds, which I love. We've got the media background, the retail background, marketing background, and a mix. I'm going to be using mix a lot there, Hayley. Before we get into the guts of it, I'd love you each to introduce yourselves and what is the most ridiculous or joyous purchase you've made in the last year. Welcome, Janice.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Janice from TerryWhite Chemmart. I've spent most of my life in the brand side, so I can relate from a brand perspective. Been in retail for 8 years and pharmacy, so it's the only retail experience I have. So very different customer mission. In answer to your question around the most joyous, I got the opportunity to buy a flight to Canada earlier this year to Silver Star to see my niece and discover after 16 years, could I or could I not still ski?
Wonderful.
Look forward to finding out. Hi everyone, I'm Hayley. So I'm the head of sales for MixIn Media, which is the retail media business for, I say Endeavour Group, but no one knows what that is. So Dan Murphy's, BWS and ALH Hotels. I don't know if I want to follow yours now because I feel like mine's a bit boring. So my joyous purchase, for me anyway, was a RoboVac. I know that's really sad. And I say for me because my dog hates it. So we're currently battling it out between RoboVac and dog at the moment, unfortunately.
Wonderful, Hayley. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Mark Lollback from Metcash. My background, I ran Group M for 5 years, so I understand media a little bit. And then I spent most of my life on the client side as CMO for different brands. So try to bring that perspective to what we do as well. In terms of the most joyous gift thing I bought this year, was absolutely my new Weber Q from Mitre 10. I barbecue at least 3 or 4 nights a week, and it was time to upgrade to the new Weber Q, and I highly recommend it, and Mitre 10's got good deals.
Awesome, I love it. We heard a lot, particularly from Brooksy and Kelly, around, I guess, business models changing, the industry evolving necessarily on all sides. I'd love to hear from each of you. What has changed for you in the last year? Structure, what's been the biggest shift in your business, if there has been one? Janice, what's changed?
Well, we're 2 years on in the launch of TerryWhite Chemmart's retail media network, which is TWC Connect. So I would say the biggest area has been around, I think, building trust internally and transparency. So I think we're going to hear trust and transparency, but internal belief. So much so now that we've now increased our sales team by 1 as of yesterday. So we have 2 media salespeople now. And I think, the importance of measurement. So, I mean, we run 17 3-weekly cycles per year. We probably have about 20 suppliers who invest in media across each campaign. And we've really upweighted our campaign reporting. So a huge focus on enabling the business around data and performance reporting.
And that first bit, that trust piece, is that just time, or is it the second part of measurement driving that? How's that improved internally?
Yeah, I think it has got to do with, it really gets down to personality and capability. So I would say that we're very fortunate to have Amy, who's here. She's really built trust in the category management team. I think the merchandise team were probably sitting there going, what's this retail media thing? How much is it going to encroach on my business? She's really taken a sort of a learn-as-you-go approach and really enabled them, and I think that's built the trust.
Great, that's great. Hayley, what's been the biggest shift over the last year for MixIn?
It's been a quiet year for us, I think. No, we've had a fair bit of change over the last 12 months, even 24 months. We've definitely evolved as a retail media network from a sort of tactical network that sort of sat there to a fully embedded growth engine for the business. We get a lot of shout outs in the recent Investor Day from our new exec, which is really exciting. I always say with great power comes great responsibility. And so Now it really is about how do we deliver on that. And I love the quotes from that presentation before around it's less about scaling and it's more about proving our value. The way in which we're doing that tangibly is we're really leaning in heavily to the joint business planning process. We're very aligned. We're in quite a unique position when we launched. We were part of the merchandise team, which is quite unique for a retail media network. So we spent a good few years really aligned to our merchandise team. We actually recently moved, so we're in the newly formed customer team, so aligned with marketing. But it means that movement has set us up for success with the merch team. We've got those relationships, and now we're working hand in glove with marketing. So that's worked really nicely together. And then in terms of the sort of big focus for us and how we're going to prove ourselves and be more transparent, I see the clean room partnership that we've got as sitting at the heart of how we grow in F27 and beyond. We feel very passionate about our data. Our exec have spoken at length on how we want to be better at sharing our data. And so the clean room environment really is a huge opportunity for us where for the first time we are making our first party data accessible for planning, for execution and for measurement. Of course, Sarah, in a very privacy safe, compliant way. Thanks to the clean room, it means that the data doesn't need to leave the walls of our retail environment and we protect our customer privacy first and foremost. So a big 12 months that have gone, an even bigger 12 months coming up is what I'd say.
Great. Mark?
Yeah, wow, where do I start? I would say that there's not much we haven't changed in our model, I would say, in the last 12 months or so. First of all, we really came and were born out of grocery. And obviously Metcash says grocery, liquor, hardware and tools. We've really evolved out of that now that we're actually across all pillars. So retail media now operates daily in all of those tools, hardware, liquor and grocery. That's a massive change internally. In terms of the team and structure, could not agree more. We've really focused and brought in a lot more salespeople and media experts, which many of them are here today. The other part of our model is we've actually put those experts into each of the pillars. I think the other evolution we've done is quite often retail media networks can be seen as almost a corporate function versus being integrated into the business. And we're really trying to change that psyche internally and to say, no, we're not a corporate function. We're actually here to support and grow the pillars and the customers and suppliers of those pillars. Has been a very big evolution, I think, in our model. And then lastly, no surprise, we've also really thought about how do we best serve our suppliers and advertisers? Yeah, and how do we integrate, how do we become really an integrated, connected, almost communication platform versus just being very siloed as a retail media player? And no surprise, you would have seen an announcement a couple of weeks ago. We've now announced a very strategic partnership with Nine Entertainment and QMS, and really looking at how we can change the dynamics in that space as well. So yeah, we changed a lot of our model.
Let's stick with you because that leads on to, you know, there's a lot of commonality in terms of structural opportunities, challenges, changes. There is, when we spoke before, there is still a huge appetite to access brand dollars, you know, enrich and, you know, retail media from a very performance channel. Mark, obviously that's your background. I guess matching not only your own sort of teams, but your suppliers, making sure that structure fits together. But with brand dollars, you know, as we've heard, comes very different expectations on reporting. How are you trying to mush that all together, particularly with your background and agency side? Do you think we're getting closer to delivering on those media metrics?
Well, okay, how long is this panel? So look, what's the best way to answer this? Yes, I think we are. The only thing I would say, and it's a bit of a caution, I think we need to split retail media. To be honest, I'd love it actually to just talk with my team that we're Metcash media versus we're retail media, because I think there's a real challenge and opportunity here. We're going to get really narrow, and we're going to become a performance-based, measurement-based, incrementality solution. And I think that's crazy. I think that's going to end up in a really narrow, small hole, and it's not going to serve our suppliers well. I don't know any other media form in this country that the only focus is on incrementality. It's just not, and if you want brand dollars, like, let's go back to what marketing is about. Marketing is connecting suppliers and products and their opportunities or their challenges with consumers, or hopefully people interested, with relevant messages at the relevant time. So I think the way that we're looking upon it is in a much bigger framework of to say, and look, it's a very linear. transaction today. If you look at retail media, it's the category team and the merch team from the supplier and the retailer. That has to be blown up. In my mind, we have to move to like a quadrangle model. Everybody has to be in the room, yeah, and it's not a linear equation. It's let's have a dynamic quadrangle where the merch team's there, the category team there, the retail media team's there, the brand team's there, the shopper media, the agencies are there, and let's focus and go back up the funnel, and let's focus on what is the challenge that the brand's facing. What are they actually trying to solve? What is their communication objective? Not all of it is incremental sales. And I think we're going to be really careful that every conversation is about measurement, incrementality. There's a much bigger conversation. There's a much bigger role we can play. And this is my passion coming from the marketing brand side. We don't have suppliers sitting in the room going, show me the incrementality. What happened to ideas? What happened to actually looking and working? We had a really great session, I can't tell you the brand, the other week. We're sitting in the room. They were super excited about us helping them solve their brand challenges around penetration, around brand awareness. And of course, the exciting thing, which is why we've done the deal with Nine and QMS, if we can take that outside the retail environment, connect it with that consumer when they're outside watching television, right through to the street, then through to the store, and activate in the store. I mean, what happened to great activation? Yeah, where did that go? We saw some presentations last week. The activation the guys want to do in our stores are mind-blowing. That's marketing. Yeah, then following it through to the shelf. And of course, we're going to focus on driving sales because that's the end outcome that everybody marketing and sales are working for. But I think we're just going to be careful. So quadrangle, bigger picture, and I think we've got a much bigger game to play than just focus on incrementality.
Hayley, you do a lot of in-store. I think that Australia started from in-store probably is an opportunity here because that experiential side of things is top of mind. I'm presuming, as well as the ideas, you're still being pushed on measuring if that idea is performing. Is it a different type of measurement or, I guess, joint?
Of course, we're always being pushed on measurement, but I think for the liquor space, we have got a job to do as an industry in just driving the energy and actually getting people engaging in the liquor space again. It's changing. The younger generations are consuming alcohol differently, and so this view that we were going to get the sale anyway doesn't necessarily translate in the world of liquor. And so actually we have got a job to do on how we show up higher up in the funnel, and we do a great job, and we work really closely with the brand teams, and we look at how do we do call room events for the BWS side, or how do we bring our stores to life. And if we look at Dan's lands the lowest liquor price guarantee, plug. But that may get them through the door, but once they're through the door, we can build the basket by having some theatrics in store and having some tasting. So I'm not shying away from the fact that measurement will continue to be something we're challenged on. Incrementality is absolutely something that we're looking at, but I agree with your point. There are bigger conversations that we need to be having around how we're actually engaging shoppers from given the macro environment that we're all living in.
Janice, are you playing in the brand space? Is that coming to life in store or online?
Yeah, well, I mean, interestingly, if you think about why does a customer go to a pharmacy, in many cases they're trying to solve a problem, and that could be a chronic health condition. So when we talk about activation, we have a dedicated space in our pharmacy called a care clinic, and in there, obviously, the pharmacist is there treating customers with their particular condition. So when we come to things like healthcare professional brands who can't traditionally market their messages because of regulatory issues, we're looking at different sorts of measurements in terms of conversations that a pharmacist can have is a key measure, awareness of a condition, just being able to talk about comorbidities. So the idea of measurement becomes quite different when you're thinking about solving a health problem. We also have to think about the traditional areas of measurement, but really when you think about a mission in a pharmacy, it's quite a different shopper experience.
And I'm presuming you're measuring, I mean, trust would be so important, so that do you measure, I'm presuming you measure trust for your own brand and how that's influenced by anything that turns up in store?
Yeah, well, we obviously use an NPS metric, and we test that amongst our loyalty database. We've got 3 million loyal members, another plug for us. So loving the reference to loyalty. But also, yeah, I mean, we do tracking every year in terms, and as most people have probably seen, pharmacists are one of the most trusted healthcare professionals. So we have to be really mindful of that too. We're a franchise network, so we need to be very mindful that when we put things in store like digital screens and the messages that we're putting on the screens, we often go through a lot of discussion internally about what are the right messages and are they appropriate for the environment.
Great. Sorry, I'm going to a little bit more on measurement, but I'm going to flip it around a little bit from the question because I think you guys have started to answer where your head's at. But we'd still love to understand if there's been any, I guess, product enhancements in the measurement piece. But as importantly, the conversations you're having with your clients, have you, you know, the shift to MMM, the shift to, I guess, the push for incrementality, are the conversations or what they're asking for in terms of, Hayley, you've talked about data requirements, like from a buy side, is that changing in a good way or a bad way? How to start with you?
Great question. I think in a good way. I think being challenged to always be better is a good thing. I think the conversation really varies though. So some of our suppliers are very sophisticated and yep, they've doubled down on MMMs and we're looking at, well, how do we as a retail media network feed into that? Because traditionally MMMs, you know, aren't really built, or I would say necessarily built to measure retail media. So we're looking at how do we play within them. But others are really early on in the stage, and so things like our post-campaign reports they find really valuable. So we have to focus at a sort of two-speed. How do we optimise our BAU post-campaign reporting? And that is making sure we've got benchmarking, so it has a so what, making sure that we're bringing in omni-channel, that we're aligning attribution windows across all of our channels. You know, and that will be our standard reporting rolling out in Q1, another plug. But, you know, in terms of the MMM piece and the bigger measurement, they are going to be on a case-by-case basis with our big strategic trade partners. That's not to say that we don't want to work with the other suppliers. It's just they're the ones that are challenging us more. And I think a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. And so we're doing it on a case-by-case basis with those guys.
No, Janice, you are seeing different questions coming through?
Look, I could just say ditto. I think the key thing is a lot of, if I sit and listen, I read the report, etc., a lot of the conversation is very focused on the fact that almost retail media network equals FMCG. And it doesn't. There's other retail media networks out there like liquor. Yeah, and we've got a very big liquor retail media network. We've got a very big hardware network with Jules, and they're very different conversations that we have with those suppliers. Their needs are very different, and they're not so committed or passionate around, say, measurement per se. The other thing that we try to do is we want to have true partnerships with our key suppliers, like you guys do, and we want to make sure that we're actually doing bespoke solutions, and therefore the way we report on that is very different than just an off-the-shelf solution or a generic. And look, the other thing with, and why it's so hard with retail media, we don't have one asset. Yeah, we're not a one-asset pony. There's so many different assets across the funnel, which we've just added more now with outdoor and television linked in. How the hell are you meant to pull that together? Yeah, and so I think it's about proving and testing different elements that we have available. We've got lots of different levers, from EDMs to in-store screen to radio to whatever it might be, catalogue, testing what works best, having open conversations. Our intent is to do one thing, have our suppliers and advertisers feel great about what they've experienced and that we've delivered a positive result for them, however they define that. So it's not, to me, it's not an out-the-box solution. We have to be bespoke. We have to work with them on what's important to them and measure appropriately. I'm very pro-measurement. I just don't think measurement should just narrow us down to nothing and we lose ambition and creativity and bigger conversations.
On that point, in the survey, there's some interesting data that shows a little bit of a disconnect. I think retailers, retail and media commerce networks have been, to your point, Hayley, like everyone wants more of your data. So that was definitely top of mind for the retailers and the sell side. But actually one of the things coming through from the buy side was we want more insights. We want, you know, are we getting better at providing, you know, insightful data? Janice, is that coming through?
Oh, love that word, insight. you know, I'm a marketer, so any opportunity to talk to other marketers, and where this really opens possibility, getting in a room and talking to a category team from a brand that have done, you know, category entry points with Ehrenberg Bass, sharing their shopper journey data, and then combining that information, that to me is the starting point, because it's really about unlocking the consumer demand. That's what gets really exciting, and then you add the measurement on top of that.
Your face just lit up then. Hayley, are you getting asked to like share your sort of that, because you know it's cultural, consumer, it's all sorts of stuff you can track.
Always. I think Endeavour Group has always been challenged on how we're better at sharing our data, and you know our new exec feel the same as well, and so that we're entering an exciting phase where we will be better at sharing our data, and everybody wins there, right? I keep coming back to the same point with liquor, but we all have a job to be done and getting people excited. So if we can share our data, and that drives innovation from a product level, not only just how we activate and sell it in. So yeah, it's an exciting space. We'll be sharing more of it as a total EDG business. And then actually, you know, as we sort of evolve MixIn as well, that will feature more heavily in our media recommendations, our product builds, and just how we show up out in market.
Yeah, awesome. I've got a couple more questions, but I'm going to also open to the floor if anyone wants to jump in. Any questions? Have a think. I'll come back to that. Standardization, harmonization, having that, I guess, that infrastructure in the ecosystem. There's been a lot of discussion about that already. Pro, con, where's that line sit? How do we build ease without losing colour and flavour for each of you? Anyone got an answer to that?
I agree with standardisation. It's interesting that we haven't talked about creativity and the measurement of creativity. Many of us that work in creating above the line, dare I say, TV campaigns, will have worked with System 1, all about sort of emotional creativity and messaging. Not seeing that so much in retail media. I would invite the opportunity to think about creativity as well.
Do you think some of that is because in other markets it has started very digital performance driven, like, and it's just not part of the suite?
Yeah, but I could assume that you could A/B test even on a performance level and get different results, and that would be exciting as well.
Mark?
Hayley? So look, I think standardization has a play. My really big concern is standardization, if we're not careful, will just make us a commodity. And then it'll be a race to the bottom. We'll be back to measuring CPMs and all that sort of stuff. For Metcash, I mean, we pride ourselves on being unique. Obviously, we've got grocery, liquor, and as I said, hardware and tools. But the most important thing that we can offer anybody is actually our shoppers. They're the most important part of this whole equation, is the quality and uniqueness of the shopper we've got, and therefore what audiences that we can create. So I'm much more passionate about what's the differentiation and what can we offer suppliers that they may not be able to get elsewhere, because we've got unique brands, we're in communities, we're in regional Australia, we're in major cities. They're different communities, they're different customer groups. So I'm all for commoditization. I mean, I don't want to be commoditized, fine for some form of standardization, but let's celebrate the differences that we've got as well. And I think that's what we're really passionate about. You talked about insights. I could not agree more. We've actually got a head of insights here today. If I have a look at our shopper being the most important thing, out of that is obviously the data. I would rather that we're using that data for our partners to extract insights, both at a shopper level and then at a category level, to share that with them to help them deliver better results than the data purely just being about measurement.
On that consumer experience point, Mark, and I'll open up to any of you, and I haven't prepped you for this, so I'm throwing you. Is there an example where the two have come together so beautifully, like the consumer benefit and the brand benefit has just like shone through? You can take names off brands if you want to, but I'd love to have some examples of when that's really worked well and why it's worked well. Is it around that insight when someone's gone in store or online? I can throw to questions while you're thinking of the best example. Hayley, have you got something?
Yeah, I think for us, the recent Formula One activations that we were doing, and it worked really well. It was with Jim Beam, and the Suntory were a great partner. But also when we had the follow-up meeting, they just sat there, and we had the trade team, we had the brand team, and they both sat there and said the campaign had ticked the box for the brand and the PR piece and really driving their Formula One partnership. It was their first year. And then the trade team were really happy because it drove the commercial results as well. So, you know, I think there is a way to be creative and be fun and still drive a tangible outcome. Hopefully we can get a case study from Suntory for that one.
That would be great.
Yeah, look, and we did one over summer with, and I think I can say it, doesn't matter, it's happened, with Coke, for example. And they had a particular challenge. They threw a challenge to us around creativity. So I'm really glad it wasn't just about, you know, price, etc. So we ran a campaign for them over 6 weeks, 6 different lots of creative, in-store activation, etc., and a full package and solution. And you can imagine Coke in retail is a very big brand. We delivered significant increase in their sales during that period versus last year based on that activation. So, and it wasn't, the measurement wasn't incrementality, whatever. They really want to know what happened against their penetration objectives, which products moved, but we delivered significant engagement and sales increase for them.
Great. Any questions? There must be questions for these guys. No? Blocker.
My question's for Mark. You mentioned before around the multiple different brands you've got, and it's not just one or the other. I guess, where do you see it for potential suppliers that are shared across the board for some of the particular brands that you have in your portfolio, being Metcash, and how do you align and what budget from a trade perspective or brand gets aligned to which one of, you know, your brands in that situation? Like, is it a bit of a bun fight, or how does it
No,
kind of
I
work?
should have paid you for that question. Thank you. No, it's really exciting. One of the, again, I'm passionate about our shoppers. Yeah, at the end of the day, we have audiences across those groups. I'll give you some examples. So if you take Mitre 10, probably about 60% of our sales come through tradies and the rest are DIYs. Okay, so there's a really interesting target there. Total Tools, 85% of our sales come from professional tradies. Okay, so there's a lot of brands out there that find that group really hard to talk to. So we ran a campaign, for example, I think I can talk about this, they won't hopefully not complain. We ran a campaign recently, it was for KitKat actually, and they wanted to run across all the pillars. So they advertised in grocery, they advertised in liquor, and they advertised in hardware because they wanted to talk to our audiences. Yeah? We've just run a campaign, I won't mention it for, but for a car brand that really wanted to talk to tradies. Now, if you want to talk to tradies, it's really hard to get to them. But if you want to talk to them, they're available. We've got very large databases. We've got great loyalty programs. We've got great in-store assets across Total Tools and Mitre 10. So we're open. We actually want to work with brands across all of the pillars. Wherever they want to spend the money, that's fine. It's more, again, about what's their objective and how do we help them solve that problem, whatever that might look like. Well, we've got tons of conversations happening now of brands either wanting to go across all pillars, or a really good example, for example, I talked about Weber earlier. If you think about Weber, there's 2 things you need to have a great barbecue: food and alcohol. Right? So Weber doesn't need to advertise in Mitre 10, right? Because the Weber's already sitting at home, but they're really keen to advertise in IGA and they're really keen to advertise in the liquor network because people are probably in there thinking about a barbecue. So I think that's the power of what we're trying to do. Again, I'm super focused on the shopper and audience.
And then do they come to us for the headache tablets afterwards the next day?
We should do a little deal, yeah? And then follow up for the hangovers, go to TerryWhite.
Beautiful. Any other questions before we have a break? Ben?
This one's to Mark. Different audiences, different verticals, different creatives, different calls to action. Do you get down to that level of specificity?
Yeah, if the advertiser wants that, absolutely. Look, I mean, the great thing about technology, and I think Broadsign's here in the room somewhere. Is Ben here and the guys? The great thing about technology is, like, we've got 800 plus screens around the network across regional Australia, metro, suburban, across all the pillars. We can advertise down to the screen. So if an advertiser, we've quite often, and the other thing that we want to talk about models, we're totally flexible and bespoke. So we have some clients that have come to us and said, our biggest issue is Queensland. So fantastic, we'll put a program together and we'll help them solve their problem in Queensland. We've had another client come to us and said the biggest issue was this part of Melbourne CBD. We're like, okay, great, we can help you solve that. So yeah, creative, we don't mind. Give us a different piece of creative every day, by channel, depending. And then I think it becomes fun, particularly if you know what this purchase cycle is. If somebody's running a campaign over 6 weeks, you might change the creative every couple of weeks. This is the fun I want to bring back. This is the creative that everybody's talked about. You know what I think, I said this to a client the other day, let's not forget that what we do is a craft. Okay, it's not just purely about measurement, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for measurement and I'm all for standardization, but let's not forget there's a craft out there that makes this really exciting.
Hayley and Janice, can you automate the fun? I think where Ben's heading is DCO, are we getting better at serving different creatives, different audiences?
It's a great question, and it's actually one that we're focusing on at the moment, because I think we had a lot of fun in F26, and what we realised is if we want to really scale, we have to think about how we sort of automate it and standardise it. So yeah, we're going to look at, you know, how we improve our content management system for our screens. We're going to look at how we have dedicated uniform spaces within our stores. At the moment, we've got some great areas, particularly in Dan's, but they have all different shapes and sizes. So we're actually at the forefront, included in the conversations on store format, which is a huge evolution. And so we can help design what the retail media space will look like. And then we can just send one set of specs to our trade partners, which I'm sure they'll be ecstatic about. So yeah, I think we can get better at making it easier to have fun.
Fantastic. Are you, Janice, are you
would
playing around?
agree.
Yeah.
We're about to announce a partnership shortly, which is going to help us significantly. We also have an internal creative team, which helps a lot. But yes, automisation and simplification is key.
Brilliant. On that note, thank you very much for joining us. Oh, one more question. Oh, sorry. Have we got? Sorry, Ali, I couldn't see you there.
Hey, Mark. So I think you sat in the hot seat. Let's keep you there.
Bring it on.
You were talking about incremental sales not necessarily being the right metric for retail media because it tends to box it in or bring it down to the lowest common denominator. And I'm in violent agreement with you there. But then what is the right sort of metric? Is there a singular metric that you would lean towards, or is it sort of a multiplicity?
I don't want to repeat myself. For me, it's super clear, okay? What's the objective? And then have the appropriate measurement. It's as simple as that. I'm not avoiding it, but if the real challenge, for example, a brand is category penetration, let's measure that. Okay, let's judge ourselves on that. If it's a new product and the measurement is trial, let's measure on our ability to generate trial for that brand when they distribute it through our network. To me, it's absolutely, again, I'm very happy to measure anything, but it's got to be a meaningful measure, not measuring because it's easy to do. Yeah, and look, I was a marketing guy. I used to criticize my agencies and grill them for answers, and we're just going to be careful that I spent, I don't know, 20, 30 years in marketing. BAU is fine, okay? And it's important, and I would say the trade side and the category side of retail media, to me, that's BAU. And it should be there, because they've got to make a choice. Do I put it into price? Do I buy a gondola in? Do I put it into some media assets? That's always going to be there. I'm not disagreeing with that. That should be hard. It should be hard-nosed. It should be traded, and we should be measured on that. But I'm talking about the other side. When new products are being launched, or they've got a penetration issue or an awareness issue that is not just about a normal BAU trading exercise. That's where I think we should have more fun, and that's where I think the measurement becomes really important, of measuring what we're actually trying to help the advertiser do, and do it in a way that's respectful. The one thing I think we may forget, maybe not, about retail media is most of our assets are really limited in terms of they're scarce. If you think about it, we've only got so many slots you can sell on a digital screen per week. If you tie that back to major events like Grand Finals or AFL, we should be looked upon just as much as a Rugby World Cup game or as a finals game. It's a limited ability. We're trying to protect our shopper. So during those peak periods, yeah, brands are coming to us because they want to be there at that time because it's relevant to them. The measurement per se of incrementality, whatever, is not that important. There's so many availability of those assets yeah, end of financial year, Mother's Day, whatever it might be, they're really big tentpole events that brands should be in there celebrating and want to participate in. That's the side I'm talking about.
And does that translate to your digital assets? You're on, you know, look, you're talking a lot of screens and in-store, but on-site?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
No, it's got to be fully integrated.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing. It's not one asset. It's actually how do you combine a combination of multiple levers that you've got that are relevant to that job to be done.
I think it was interesting as well in the IAB reports earlier. You saw from the advertiser side, they were asking or saying that they wanted to be closest to the point of purchase, and so that is the sweet spot for retail media. And so we can do both. We can bring creativity, but bring it to the closest point of purchase.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we're going to have some fun in person. We will see you back in 20 minutes. Thank the panel.